Welcome to our Mentoring Matters talk for this month. Let's look at our agenda. So, pretty much a welcome to everybody. I'll also cover a little bit about the Mentoring Club. I see that we have new people in the room. And then after that, we will go straight into our topic, an exciting, intriguing discussion with Jorim moderating from Italy on his holiday. So the topic is, will ChatGPT replace mentors? And then after that, we will have some announcements so that you can be aware of the other events that we have within the Mentoring Club. First off, I'd always like to recognize people who have been instrumental in organizing many of our initiatives, our events. These are just a number of people that I could put in the slides, and there are so many more that are actually helping us. And I don't know if our new intern for social media marketing has already joined us, but we'd like to recognize also Diane, Danica, and Marites, who's joining us for the first time. They are interns. They will help us with our social media marketing. And then, of course, thanks to our speakers, Anagha, Kevin, Mahni, and Mo, and Jorim, who's our moderator. Please follow us, like our post, and comment on our post, share and tag. These are the tags that you could use once you amplify our presence in the various social media channels. The big question is, why are we here? And why does the Mentoring Club exist? So I'll tell you a little bit more about us. The mission of the Mentoring Club is centered on passionate and driven mentees. They want to become leaders or better leaders faster. And the community of mentors in the Mentoring Club are there to help them achieve their goals by developing the skills that they need to get there faster. The relationships happen globally or locally if they're in the same geographic area, but anywhere in the world. And ultimately, our dream is that as mentees become successful leaders themselves, that they will become mentors to others. So right now, we are grateful for the first generation of mentors that we have. Eventually, we're looking forward to having our mentees become mentors as well. And we do have one that has started mentoring already. So these are some examples of relationships that have happened or are happening in the community right now. So a mentee in California connecting with mentors in the US, in Mexico, and Czech Republic. A mentee in Kenya connecting with mentors in Uganda and the US. Mentee in India connecting with mentors in the US. Mentee from China, connecting with mentors from Australia and the US. And then our mentee from the Philippines, Naj, who is here joining us today, connecting with mentors from Canada and the US. So those are some examples that have successfully connected with mentors in the community. And this is how we look like from a distribution standpoint as of the end of last year. The count was 290 mentors and mentees. We're over 300 mentors and mentees now. And how do we attract people into our community? We definitely would like to share our core leadership values. The first anchor value is trust. We believe that integrity, honesty, and commitment are what make us trustworthy as individuals and professionals. The second anchor value is leadership, health, vision, execution. We believe that we need all this to be successful leaders. One without the other pretty much leads to nothing. And then the last anchor value is community. So we believe that humanity, contentment, family are values or core grounding forces that eventually make us feel happy and fulfilled. It's our human to human relationships that matter in the end. So for this session, we are tackling what everybody is actually talking about. I guess almost everybody. Will ChatGPT replace mentors? And I would like to recognize Jorim for being so committed even during his holiday. He's here to help us moderate this session. And our speakers are Anagha, Kevin, Mahni, and Mo. And I will turn over the floor to Jorim now.
Thanks, Liesel. So one of the reasons I decided to not just say I'm on holiday, I'm not going to do this, but to actually be here and moderate and participate in this discussion is that I want to be part of this and I want to know what different people, different experts we might say in the world of AI think about this. And I'm very curious. I have a list of questions prepared, so we will have about 30 minutes that um, we go through those, and then we also open up the floor for questions from the audience and fill almost a full hour with that done. But I first want to actually introduce our panelists today. So we have Anagha Sudalbagi. She's currently a product manager at Microsoft, where she works in cloud databases. She has a master's degree from Cornell University Department of Computing and Information Science. She also has 8 years of professional experience as a software engineer building backend SaaS and AI and NLP systems. As a tech lead on various projects in microservices and monoliths, she has played a key role in architecting and designing solutions, planning, and collaborating with teams in an agile environment. She likes to give back to the community through mentorship. That's why she's here. And she enjoys practicing calligraphy, reading, and playing tennis. Anagha, so great to have you here. And I'm really looking forward to your input on some of our questions and the discussion that we will have. Then next, we have Kevin McGee. He's a recognized technology and data expert with more than 30 years experience at the forefront of innovation in multiple sectors. He has led teams for high growth technology companies, the largest multinationals, including Fortune 10, academic AI research labs, and investment firms. His fascination with advanced analytics, machine learning, and AI began nearly 20 years ago when most of us probably didn't know about AI anyway. And since then, he has been applying this tech into products and businesses from healthcare and financial services to ad tech, digital marketing, and even regulatory and safety tech. As a CTO, he's been a lifelong learner and relishes finding the magic dust that makes the product so compelling that users can't do without it. So I'm very curious because I know about some things that have to do with making AI chatbots so compelling that users don't want to go without it, potentially taking some kind of a mentorship role. So I'm sure we're going to get to that. The third panelist we have is Mahni Shaiganfa. He's the co-founder and CEO of the stealth mode startup in Silicon Valley. I was like the one in stealth mode. He's interested in topics related to leadership in innovative companies, specifically AI and data-driven companies solving real-world problems to improve our society. He has over 20 years of interdisciplinary experience within startups and corporations as software engineer and research scientist in AI-related use cases such as autonomous driving. He has a master's degree in AI, PhD in computer science and cognitive robotics, and an MBA degree in leadership. He's passionate about helping younger professionals improve their leadership skills by acquiring new principles based on their strengths. Yeah, I'm always just so fascinated when people have so much experience. When for me, AI really just, um, I just really became aware of it pretty recently, and hearing that somebody has a master's degree that is already, some time ago is fascinating. And then lastly, I want to introduce Mo Rubenzarm as an engineer turned marketing strategy consultant. Mo scales big company practices to work for entrepreneurs with 80 clients since 2013. He's been experimenting with ChatGPT for real world content. He has 40 years of executive level marketing experience in billion-dollar firms and in startups. As serial mentor, Mo believes that a small transfusion of experience can transform careers and change the trajectory of our businesses, families, and communities. Mo lives with his family in both the San Francisco Bay Area and the gorgeous Catskills of New York State. He is there to the world's best 12-year-old. Nice. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And now we specifically have the the question whether ChatGPT will replace mentors, and we might be speaking to ChatGPT. We might also um, widen that question a little bit, whether there might be other models or other products based on the same technology behind ChatGPT. But let's just start there. And I want to just ask, um, I'm sure you all use ChatGPT, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here. So um, how do you use it? Maybe just to get some ideas, what has been the most fascinating use you have had for ChatGPT until now? And the way we do it is I'll just give one person the word, and then that person takes it and can pass it on. So I'm going to give it to Anagha.
Thank you. I could talk about recent use case. It was my birthday last month, and I wanted to plan a bookstore crawl. So I asked ChatGPT to have, I live in San Francisco. So I asked ChatGPT to plan a bookstore crawl for me between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. by picking the bookstores that would be open and that would be X miles away from my house. And I was able to set that up, sent it to my friends, and we were able to do this at short notice.
Oh, what a great example. Thank you. I'll pass it on. Mo, how about you?
I've been using ChatGPT quite a bit. I found it to be a really great tool for writing, for marketing, and for my mentoring. What I discovered was it's a really, really great tool for brainstorming. My daughter she's in the Scouts, and we were doing a promotional poster, and we didn't like the title of the poster. And so I asked ChatGPT to brainstorm 20 titles for this poster, and it blew me away. I was like stunned at how clever they were and how descriptive and how effective. And then I took the list to the scout meeting, and the girls went, we want this one, we want this one. And that's the one we ended up using. Really good brainstorming tool.
Hey, thank you. Okay, Mahni and then Kevin, please.
I use ChatGPT in, I would say, 2 or 3 different ways. One is to improve the performance of my search in general. Like instead of searching in Google, I try to switch to ChatGPT and do the search there. It's the search result. And then if I need, based on the use case, if I need more depth, then I go back to Google and do more research there. This is one of the ways that, like, day-to-day life I'm using it. Another way is in my programming, like I'm testing in Python different ways, anything that's related to my work, basically. For example, one of the use cases was how to use ChatGPT to create SQL queries, basically, or how to integrate it in a way that you can use other generative AIs, like creating images, but everything as a pipeline and automated in code. So I'm trying to say that in code level, I'm using it in code level and also in my day-to-day life too.
I've been using it for all the usual kind of stuff for businesses and summarizing things and researching lots of different topics for work and so on. But the most fun kind of, okay, maybe I have a weird definition of fun, but the most fun thing that I've been using it for is coming up with all sorts of puzzle questions for my kids. So they've really started to get into it as well, and just challenging all sorts of different creative ideas and things that they can come up with. And I've got a 10 and a 12-year-old, and I'm challenging them to all sorts of math questions and all sorts of school things. I know it's become a little bit controversial in the education kind of space, but I'm trying to switch it around and use it as a way of getting them to think about different scenarios. So that's probably the most fun use that I've had for it.
Had a session with my students, and I dedicated the last half hour to talking about ChatGPT, and most of them, surprisingly, haven't used it yet. And I told them, like, okay, you already know you're not allowed to use it to write text. I don't want you to do that either, but it can help you. It can help you create flashcards. It can help you, understand things. So do use it. within the limits that it's allowed to be used in education at the moment. And I think that's a whole nother discussion. But so when it comes to mentoring, how do you see that already today mentors can use ChatGPT to improve their mentoring?
I think the most important thing is that people need to understand what ChatGPT is and is not. Today, AI is, it seems really clever, but it's actually pretty stupid. The level of it has no comprehension. I mean, and emphasize the word none, no comprehension whatsoever of what it's doing. It's taking, based on the words you provided, it's looking at a massive database of it's actually not even a database. It's looking at trillions of human words and figuring out what the highest probability word it can string to the end. And it's remarkably cogent and remarkably helpful, but it's really just a tool. The way I've used it is, I mentioned brainstorming, and in the mentoring context, if somebody needs a title for something or they need some techniques of how to do something, kind of like the bookstore crawl that Anagha was talking about, it's really good at saying, do this, then do this, then do this in order to do something. It's really good at tips. So one of my mentees was looking for help on time management, and it came up with a whole bunch of good time management tips. And then in a follow-up question, a really good list of time management tools like Pomodoro, Asana. It had a really good grasp of what's out there. Job opportunities. So I was able to ask it about salary differentials for somebody who was looking at whether she should get a master's degree or not. Reading, it's really good at summarizing. So if you're looking at articles that you need to become an expert on in a hurry, it's good at summarizing those, breaking a task into steps, doing research, augmenting your resume. Because in a resume, you're often thinking, I wrote this, here's what I'm doing, but I need to get it down to like 2 sentences. And it's very good at rewriting. So those are some of the ways that I've used it or would like to use it more in mentoring.
Yeah, I think I just kind of add to that a little bit in my kind of experience. If I look at I break kind of mentoring down into two pieces. One of them is there's a whole lot of basics, all that stuff that you talked about there, Mo, where you kind of spend an awful lot of time working with people, and there's a whole lot of just, really obvious things that somebody can be doing. And it's great for uncovering all of those, maybe challenging people. But it's not so great at maybe taking it to the next stage and getting more creative and kind of moving beyond the bland and generic and all of that sort of stuff. So what I would look at it is just cover off all those baseline items, just kind of, so we can then, when we have the human to human interaction, it becomes less about the obvious generic bland stuff. And as you said, Mo, it's regurgitating, the corpus of the knowledge that it has ingested. We can move on to humans, the more interesting things. And that's how I would currently use it, those scenarios.
I want to add another angle into this. As Liesel at the beginning, she mentioned, everywhere you go nowadays, no matter what is the community, people are talking about ChatGPT. I turned into a person that I realized that I'm more advocating what ChatGPT is not and cannot do, because there are so many people that they're expecting. I am noticing that there's a wrong image is being created in the society, even between experts. When I, like in Clubhouse or other platforms, when I hear people try to talk about this as a technology or as a tool, I see that there are so many, I was misunderstanding, I would say. First of all, there is this, the biggest issue I have is that many people believe that ChatGPT is AI. It's not equivalent to AI. Like there is no reasoning in ChatGPT. So it's just a very good language model in its own infancy. This is gonna, it is a good beginning, and this is not gonna be something that we are gonna have in 10 years. Like, it's gonna be something completely different. So I'm trying to see it from different angle and see what are the, how it can help us, obviously, but the expectation management. Like, for example, because this topic right now today is about mentoring, I would, the way I look at it, I see when we talk about the mentoring, I look at the components of mentoring. Like, for example, motivating your mentee is part of mentoring, or supporting your mentee, or there are different components, and creating awareness is another one. I think ChatGPT can be fabulous to create awareness and as Mo mentioned, brainstorming, showing different angles to the same topic, that show the mentee that there are other options always, coming up with new solutions to ordinary problems. I would say that's the best way to look at it. And the caveat there is that as mentors, I would say we have to be very careful that at the end of the day, mentorship is, in my opinion, it's all about self-reflection, and it's not all about the information, passing information to the mentee. It's the mentee's job to listen, learn how to listen, and learn how to ask questions, which is another angle to ChatGPT. I'm sure those of you who used it, the way I talk to other experts around me, my friends, I would say the questions that we ask from ChatGPT is the leakage of our intelligence into AI. Because if we ask bad questions, we are going to get bad results.
I agree with what Mahni said in terms of it's not completely AI because it cannot reason yet. And I would say I've used it for similar purposes in terms of like an advanced search system, also for a lot of planning, also for a lot of editing and summarization. Most recently, when I was chatting with one of my mentees, she's in her final year of college and she's in the job search process. So we were able to use ChatGPT to refine her cover letters and her introduction emails that she was sending out. Also some follow-up emails to make it more persuasive. And I think also to change the tone slightly. So I think it was super useful in that case. My mentee was very excited because she had not used it previously. And she was very excited about all the other ways she could use it in the future. So that worked out well. However, I also think this is more of a way to augment how mentors can help out mentees or like give ideas or suggestions. But I would think it would be hard to replace the human connection and the shared experiences. It would be, or at least previously when I have been a mentee and like when mentors have shared things, their experiences or shared advice for things that I might be facing at that point, I think that would be hard for ChatGPT to replace. So I would say it has its place, and it's just something that would help accelerate or augment certain capabilities.
In what ways do you or would you suggest your mentees use ChatGPT or similar language models?
Some ideas I've shared with them have been mostly in terms of to refine their thoughts, because I think it's, especially like in the context of like assignments, etc. I think like we still have a lot of original ideas or creative ideas around different things we're working on. So I would say mostly to refine ideas. Another way could be to summarize notes or something that they've been reading up on. Other ways could be for planning, or similar to what Mahni said, time management techniques or like more ideas or detailed ideas or thoughts for them to do better and like improve productivity. So I'd say as an adjacent tool to improve their efficiency and productivity.
I think it is really important for the mentees to be in a kind of a mindset where they use all of these tools to help them to think. And I think one of the areas that I think that ChatGPT brings up is the challenge of hallucinations of this type of tech, where it will very confidently give you the wrong answer. And if you blindly follow all of this tech, you won't know that it's giving you the wrong answer. And so I think you can kind of use it in a couple of different ways. You can either help the person to have the confidence to know when to push back, but also to have it as a tool to actually push out some of these concepts. in an education scenario, some of the stuff that I talked about before, give it the wrong answers. It very confidently will tell you the wrong answers and get people to critique it and to see if they can spot whether the wrong answer is there or not. But it's all a process of thinking and building confidence and helping you understand, this is a tool. In the past we would have called some of these things maybe decision support systems or other similar terms, but it's a tool to kind of help you in your job or in your life in different ways. But I think it's in that content. I really feel the thinking part is that kind of dynamic that we need to be encouraging, and I think you can use this tool to force some of that, like I was saying. But we can't forget that it is very confident at some of the wrong answer stuff too. So we can use that in a positive or a negative way.
Anagha, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for contributing to the discussion, and glad to have you go already. Hopefully see you in the next version.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this. See you again.
I would basically categorize the way ChatGPT can help mentees. I would just categorize them into 2 or 3 categories. Definitely in terms of skills that they can learn, it can give another angle to the depth that they can add by just optimizing their search when they search to learn new skills. Another way is challenging them by brainstorming, as Mo said. You can open new doors to challenge their mind, to think on different things when they're facing a problem. And the third category, I would say, it's that it can be used really to inspire them, basically, because they need the inspiration when they're in this path. And it can be very inspiring because, especially because usually as a mentor, I would say this, each mentor has its own background in his life, and all of us, from AI's point of view, as mentors, we are biased. We are biased by our own background as mentors. So what ChatGPT can do to inspire them, by them I mean mentees, separating this mentor's bias from what the mentee needs and get to inspire them in that.
That's such a great point that Manny brought up about inspiring, because when you think about something like ChatGPT, you don't think of it as stepping in where Anagha referred to the human to human relationship. You don't think of it as being, you think of it as being tactical, not something that can relate to somebody. And in mentoring, we spend a lot of time, if we're doing it right, when I'm doing it right, I'm asking more questions than I'm supplying information, kind of exploring what the territory is. And it's good at that. If you ask it what kind of opportunities are out there for whatever, or it comes back with answers that neither the mentor nor the mentee would have thought of, and you go, oh, this is something we hadn't considered. I asked ChatGPT what it's good for in the mentoring world. It said AI can complement mentors by providing additional resources, information, and support, and then talked about research. It didn't talk about inspiration, but it did talk about, it said ultimately the combination of human mentors and AI tools can create a powerful support system for learning and growth, which I think speaks to what Manny and others were saying.
As mentors, we're going to have to up our game
by using the best tools.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think we can go over to the questions.
I've been playing with it. I do research for startups across everything because there's no generalist to glue them together. I looked at one article that described it arguing with a person who wanted to define a nurse as a male. And he kept changing the sentence to try to force it to accept that a nurse could be a male. And it came back when it couldn't find anything else to say. It told him he was making a grammatical error. It has, secondly, how we control what people see. People in Russia support the war against the Ukraine for the most part. because Putin controls the media. And pretty much everyone in the press who talks about that and the psychologists fully agree. In the Ukraine, you'd probably get a very different view from a tool like chat. So it provides a subtle way to control people in a way that may not be in their best interests. And that has caused some people to say it should favor certain political positions that these particular people support that are not held by the majority. I think that's enough for me to share. Thank you.
The P in GPT stands for pre-trained. And I think that's the key kind of point. It is trained on a corpus of information, which can be used for good, or it can be used to skew a bias in some way. And I think regardless of what the position happens to be, I think this is the key point that I always bring up about understanding that it is a tool, understanding that it is something that can be biased, that it isn't an unbiased thing. It can be very biased. And we've seen that in all sorts of different ways. And many of you have given examples today. But I think having that confidence to understand that it isn't always going to be supportive of your ideas, or you need to think about it, you need to use it to challenge your thinking, I think is very important. Thanks for bringing that point up, Chuck.
I just want to comment based on what I've heard so far. The thought that came to mind is that it seems like that ChatGPT is also training us to ask the right questions. And in life, that is very, very important. Would you agree to that? If you ask it one question and you're not and the answer does not uh, sound right, then maybe you have to ask it a different way, right? And so in that way, the interaction with the tool is pretty much training us also to think about how we ask questions.
I agree with you, Liesel, and I would not only I agree, I would like to also add something to that. It can also be helpful to refine your questions. There is one thing that you can ask a good question. Another thing is to understand that there are so many options of asking the same questions and getting the results based on the quality of your questions. It is all those results, they can based on your perception, they can be correct, but there is always a better result that you can get. I literally, in the code level, I practice this there is no ending to it. You can always refine. And the way I hypothesized it, I wanted to see what is the answer for my question, not in terms of text, but in terms of the image that is generated automatically generated based on the ChatGPT's generated text. So you can see, based on the refinement of your question, the quality of the image can get better and better in terms of what you're having your imagination in your mind. So that refinement, in my opinion, is also important.
I just want to reinforce your point that it is teaching us how to ask questions, because usually we ask a single question, and with ChatGPT, you do need to do those follow-ups. And ultimately, you've probably seen where a lot of people are giving prompt formulas for how to do a prompt. And so I use one where I say, what's my role? Who's the audience? What's the tone you're looking for? I don't think you'd use all of those when you're talking to a person or asking a question in the audience, but you start thinking about those things, and especially what outcome, what do you want the audience to do, to feel, to think, which is something we counsel with clients in marketing all the time, is what is the outcome that you want? And it helps to ask ChatGPT. So maybe it is training us to ask better questions. If so, that'd be great.
I have asked it to do things like critique paragraphs or critique different things, but also to critique it with a particular persona that I might not have myself. Come at it from maybe a counterpoint or something, and it comes back with some interesting ideas and interesting challenges. And I think that is something that is useful for it as a tool.
it's fun to ask it a question and then take its answer and say, now do that and add some humor, or now do that and make it ridiculous, or now do it and sound like Julia Child. And I've done, and it's brilliant at that. It's actually really good at simulating the emotional state of whatever it is that you want. Kevin, to your point about having it rewrite things, I took a couple of paragraphs, gave it to it, and said, edit this as a proofreader would. And it was interesting. It came back with 15 suggestions. 3 of them were, so one, there was some irony in my paragraph that it completely missed. Second one, there was a movie reference, it completely missed. And another one, there was some humor that it completely missed. And so consequently, it made the paragraphs technically correct. So the other 12 changes, I said, oh, this is actually a technical improvement on my sentence structure. And I accepted all those changes. But those other 3, it removed all of the personality from what I'd written by taking out those jokes and those irony bets. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of fascinating. I remember years ago, I was working on a project and it was for an art exhibition. There was a bunch of data scientists. This was before we were all calling it AI. They were asked to run some sentiment analysis on the Twitter feed for this art exhibition. And they thought they did a good job, kind of positive and negative sentiment and neutral sentiment and so on. And they presented it to the art director of the exhibition. And she at the time said, it's got it completely wrong. They were all distraught because they're like, no, our algorithm is correct. And what it turned out was, she said, well, for art, an opinion, positively or negatively, is positive because it's an opinion. So just because it's a negative opinion on the art is actually a positive sentiment about the art, if you know, as in for the art exhibition. And I think there is that challenge generally with this type of tech. That's going to come out in time. People will be using it today and just taking it blind faith for whatever it comes back with and doing that. But this wouldn't be the first tool. We've seen it with search. We've seen it with many other examples. So I'm sure exactly the same patterns will play out over time until we all get used to how we can use this technology in a powerful way.
I'm just trying to stay ahead of ChatGPT and trying to understand where it's going. And so my question is, how do we train ourselves? How do we to stay ahead of ChatGPT and determining that the answers are both relevant and semi-truthful or semi-wrong?
Early on, I had a direct experience with that where I found a quote and it was attributed to, I forget, Nikola Tesla or something like that. And I knew that wasn't right. So I went to Google and I said, who said in this quote? And I got strange answers. So then I asked ChatGPT. ChatGPT came back immediately and said, this is such and such. And then I go, and that didn't match anything. So I said, are you sure? And then it came back with an immediate capitulation where it said, as an AI, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And it basically told me that it doesn't have web access or any real information. It just has, because I didn't understand how ChatGPT worked at the time. But basically, it just completely capitulated and admitted that it doesn't know anything. But the initial answer it gave me, it said with absolute clear authority and zero doubt or zero question. So basically, you just can't trust or really pay attention to anything that it says, or actually you read it, and then you just have to read it with a very skeptical mind, the way you would read a tweet, and then check everything on the web or through authorities.
That's a good example. So I've actually played around a little bit with that, with just asking, are you sure, when I get a reply. And every time I ask it, I get an apology back. Actually, it's something else. And then I ask it again, and it goes the same thing. And even if it is true, even if I know that it is true, it will tell me that it was wrong if I question it. So we have to be very careful. And well, we can also just have some fun with it. But certainly, it is, it is constructed to be a model, and you all know more about it than I do, but it is constructed to be a social model that reacts in a friendly way to whatever the human puts into the chatbot.
Somebody described it this way. I said, imagine, I don't speak Mandarin, But suppose I had a whole pile of books written in Mandarin. So I don't, not only do I speak the language, but I can't even recognize the characters. And you gave me questions written in Mandarin. It means absolutely nothing to me. But what I can do is I can go through those books and find patterns that match that and answers that match. And then I can just figure out what the highest probability character might go onto the end of the string. And then that is ChatGPT. It's phenomenally good at reading strings of characters. It's phenomenally good at creating strings of characters that make sense to a human, but it has zero knowledge of what's in between. It has no database.
I think that's probably the most important point to me in the context of this discussion. I mentioned the point about we want people to think and challenge and push back and all of those things. As long as you're doing that, it's important. But I also think we have to make sure that we're trying to bring in creativity. We're trying to bring in innovation. We as humans want to factor in things like compassion and empathy and all of the humanity kind of dimensions in this. And we can have a tool like ChatGPT and many others running in the background, but the purpose, I think, of for me, certainly anyway, in my opinion, of mentoring is to try and bring those human dimensions out. And if somebody is looking for push forward in their career, how to help them and how to challenge them and get them to think, and yeah, and even if a tool comes up with some maybe crazy answers for some questions, that might be okay because it might inspire them to do something else and to think about something in a different way and kind of to move forward. So in the context of what we're talking about, it can be a very useful, fun tool perhaps, and a tool that can challenge. But I think we always have to bring it back, I feel, to this human connection. That's really important. And I don't think any of the technologies that are around today can replace that. But I do think we as mentors have to kind of, I think it might have been you, Mo, that was saying that if we're just like regurgitating information back to our mentees, that's like search engines can do that. ChatGPT can do that much better than we can. But it's the other pieces of it. It's, the we as humans, where we can elevate it and we can really challenge the mentees to kind of bring it to the next level or use our experience. That's where we need to go with this, I feel.
If you play around with the engine in a lower level, playing around with their APIs and in code level, you can see that you can actually control the amount of creativity in the generated text. So they call it temperature. So there are literally parameters that you can pass to the APIs. For the same question, you can get myriads of different types of results by controlling the creativity. If you say that, for example, you don't want to have creativity at all, go to one extreme with that parameter, everything becomes fact-based. So all the answers that the engine generates, it's all the fact-based, and you can go, it's literally fact. It's written somewhere, and the model has seen it somewhere, the literal words. But you can also go to the other end, which is 100% of creativity, which they don't, by the way. They say try to not to do that because there is a phenomenon, it's called hallucination. Then you're going to end up having some results that they are basically nonsense for that parameter. So you can play around based on what you would like to, based on what's your intention.
You can ask it about its sources, and it generally will be very, very thorough, very honest, and tell you where the information came from. And I think that is an important thing. I do find it a useful tool. I just validate what I get from it. Thank you.
I just have a couple of points that I wrote down, kind of summarizing on a very high level what we've come up with here, what was discussed here. So first thing was a highlight that ChatGPT is not AI, but a really good language model that it gives us an answer based on what's most likely, based on the input it has received, and that it has no reasoning. And that's probably also why we have some of those silly or funny answers sometimes. And then when it comes to mentoring, that mentoring actually is, or rather should be, about the human connection and about personal experiences. And when mentoring is about that, then there's no way ChatGPT can take that away. Sure, it can regurgitate information that is somebody's personal information, but it is not the individual or the character you're talking to. And maybe because of that, challenging us mentors to dedicate more time to that and potentially outsourcing the information, the research, the potentially even part of the brainstorming. And that is something that mentees also can do themselves as preparation or as part of the mentor process, potentially with help from the mentor. If the mentor knows about ChatGPT better than the mentee, of doing some research, doing some brainstorming, coming up with good questions to ask, double checking things, and thereby combining both, having the personal interaction, having more time in the mentoring, actually spending on the personal stuff and less on the uh, hard truth information kind of stuff, because that's easy to get from ChatGPT or other sources.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much to all of you, our speakers, Kevin, Mahni, Mo, and Anagha, for those who participated in the Q&A and those who are listening. I hope that you are all able to get some reflections on what's happening in the world of ChatGPT. Thank you again to everyone. If you're interested to join our community and be part of more of our events, these are the things that are coming up. First, we'd like to share that what we have been promoting for the past 6, 7 years have been the global mentoring program, where any individual can go in, register as a mentee, and we help them connect with mentors based on their goals and the development skills that they need to develop in themselves. And so our way to extend our reach is to create a corporate mentoring program, which is a consulting services organized with program consultants who have decades of experience. And we call that mentoring program LEAD. So if your organization is in that mode of investing in its people, making sure that people feel that they belong, they have engagements, and they can plan for succession long term by engaging their employees, then please feel free to reach out to me. And Jorim is also one of our program consultants. These are just some of the stages. You will have a copy of the slides when you get an Eventbrite notification. So I'll not go into the details of the stages, but just a quick note on the other program consultants that we have. Leslie has her PhD in mentoring, and she's based out of New Zealand. And then Caroline is life and career coach, which is based here in Silicon Valley. Hong and I are both from high-tech space and consulting. If you can just see from the composition, we also deliberately wanted to have some diversity of experiences within this core consulting group of mentors that can deliver mentoring programs to companies. And then for our next month's Mentoring Matters talk, we will focus on career development or career planning and development with the topic Rising in the Ranks. So we have Brian Gollod, he's based in Canada. Robert Shepard is based in the UK, and Olga is based in Czechia or the Czech Republic. They are mentors and partners in the Mentoring Club. I hope you can join us again for another round of panel discussion. For those of you who are in the Bay Area, we do our hikes at the Stanford Dish every second Saturday of the month. So this time it's going to be on June 10. So be happy to see you there. And then on Clubhouse, we have the Mentoring Matters discussion room. Our mentor, who is an investment banker, prolific networker as well, Sean Flynn, will talk about preparing your company for sales. This is for those of you who are thinking, who are in the startup space or thinking of going into startup. The reason why we exist is to serve mentees. So anytime you think that you're ready to connect with mentors, please go ahead and register on our website. And for mentors, when you're ready to give back, you feel happy and successful, and you're ready to give part of your life to mentees out there, just like what our speakers are doing, including Jorim, our moderator, doing within the Mentoring Club. They're giving back. Please join us. This is an important part of a nonprofit organization. We'd like to make sure that we encourage people who believe in the cause, who believe in what we're trying to do. We're trying to make mentoring available on a global basis to develop leaders and help people in their leadership journey. Please go ahead to our website as well, and the link will be on this slide when you get a hold of the slide. And then volunteers. We are mostly being run by volunteers. You've seen the long list of names, and you'll see some of the team members in our website also. We continue to encourage people to volunteer with us. These are some of the positions, and if you have any specific skill set that you think would be useful for a community like us, we're happy to talk. Lastly, your feedback is a gift to us, and so you will receive a survey form, again, through Eventbrite. Please go ahead and send us your feedback, topics that you'd like us to do, or any format that you'd like to see us do in the future, or specific speakers. If you want us to reach out to anybody that you've listened to in the past that you think the community will benefit from. Again, our focus is adding value whenever we have these kinds of sessions. So with that, I thank you. This is my contact information. And then I wish you all a good day, good evening, and always enjoy the journey.